Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Covers September book discussion. With me today is Maryanne Mwaura, our guest. Remember, at the beginning of this month, we had set out to read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I hope you have read the book, and if you have not read the book, spoiler alert. Now, I want to introduce my lovely guest, Maryanne. Maryanne, thank you very much for honoring us and for taking your time to come and be here with us. It's an honor, and we are grateful. So, a little bit about Maryanne. Maryanne Mwaura holds an honors degree in sociology and literature from the University of Nairobi. She holds a diploma in Chartered Institute of Public Relations, as well as a diploma in coaching, and is a certified strengths finder and design your life coach. She's an executive coach and a leading public affairs professional in the financial services industry with over 20 years experience. Her passion for empowering women led her to start the Activate Women in Leadership Africa. Maryanne hosts Activate Gems and Nuggets show, where she chats with leaders on their unique journeys and experiences in businesses and in life. She's a strong believer that we are the masters of our destiny, and we have the power to execute the actions we derive from ourselves. So, Maryanne, karibu sana.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome, Emma.
And so we'll go right into the book discussion. And The Midnight Library was actually recommended by Maryanne herself. So it is a book that it pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I hope I don't know what it did to you. It is a book that talks to us about the lives that we are living today. And maybe, Maryanne, will you allow me to just give a little glimpse of what the book is?
Sure.
Because, there are people who have not read it and we don't want to spoil the show. So this novel, focuses on a young, talented, I want to believe she was a beautiful lady called Nora. And Nora was a 35-year-old woman from England. She was bright, she was talented, she had it all. In her 20s, Nora was a swimmer all the way to the Olympics. She was an aspiring glaciologist, and Nora was a musician. But she did not see her worth, or she did not see these gifts and talents to her fruition. And really, that is what happens to us. I think at some point we get tired. I don't know. So at some point, life got the better part of her, and she decided to commit suicide. So she woke up and found herself in a midnight library. And in that library, there were different phases of life, in and out. And it led me to wonder, if I was to die and come back, would I have any regrets? It was a life-changing book. Yeah. So, Maryanne, maybe you can just tell us, what is the significance of this title? What came to your mind?
Thank you very much for that introduction of the book. It sets a very good imagination for everyone to know what it's all about. So when you think about the word midnight and you think about library, what comes to mind? A library has all sorts of books, scientific. Some are boring, some are fun. So there's a whole aspect of even what we can call life.
Yeah.
And now midnight comes with darkness. When we think about darkness, what comes to mind? For some people, midnight, I think of Cinderella, when she turns from one aspect to another thing. That's one way you can interpret midnight. For people say people die at midnight, So it can also be a time for reflection. What do you need to die from so that you can be able to awake the next day with some other way of looking at it? So, it's hard for me to be in a book club because having a literature background, we can really dissect a word until it, to death, as you would put it.
It comes to life.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so, and also add this, it's a book I would never have picked up on my own. It was actually recommended to me by my book club friends. But I'm also happy because it has that reality, that sci-fi type thinking. As you said before, if I could live my life again, how would I live it? But the question I would have for someone reading this book is, why you're not living that life if you're already living it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why this book was really important.
I started thinking, am I doing the right things? And when you were reading this book, what were the main themes that you picked?
Fantastic question. And in fact, it's something that you already picked up on. One aspect is choice and regret. You know, that in our lives, we are faced with very many choices. And it's the decision is actually only on us, no one else. Some people say that, yes, you know, maybe our parents chose some paths for
Yeah.
us. But actually, when you're an adult, because of course as a child, it's expected for a parent to do that. But when you're an adult, you actually are the master of your own destiny, not to, you know.
Yeah, you
But
are.
sometimes we give ourselves excuses as to why that, you know, excuses why you're not living the life you want to live. Yeah. Then the other one, the other theme for me is philosophical. You know, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? And you know, you could tell from the book she talks about, do I need to, when someone is thinking of committing suicide, from, you know, the research that is there, because, you know, mental health has become a very prominent topic now. It's that when someone, it's that they have given up on life, that they don't feel that who they are contributes to society. These are very hard themes to think about, but it was, you know, I commend the author for bringing it out in a novel form, because you and I wouldn't read a book on suicide. In fact, when you
Never.
said it, you were even whispering,
Yes.
because it's not a word that we wanted to talk about. And last but not least, and maybe even the most important for me, is relationships and forgiveness. It's a very important part. Relationships. How do I relate with other people? In the book, you will see that you assume that when you live another life, that some people will still be there. But actually, even they are having similar lives that they may not be living or otherwise.
Yeah.
So that those relationships are important. But the most important one is actually between yourself and your creator. And then also about forgiveness, forgiving others, but more so forgiving yourself. That's, I think, a very important lesson that comes through in this book.
It does come through, like when she was talking about how she left her fiancé just before the wedding. Then when she came back, she was like, I wish I had done it earlier. It is really something you think about and you wonder, have I forgiven myself for that?
You're right. There are many choices in this book that she comes through. You know, for example, when she's thinking that actually, let me commit suicide because there's no one who will be affected by it. But in other life, she gets to see that, for example, her neighbor who used to depend on her for his medicines then ends up dying. That the student that she used to teach piano to actually ends up being a delinquent. You know, so the choices we make that we feel that are our own, but the consequences and how it affects other people in the world is actually much more than we take, that we give ourselves reason for.
Yeah, like the ripple effect is
The
so
ripple,
much.
I love that. The ripple effect is so much.
It's so much. And I like the way you've brought out the issue of mental health. Today, nearly 1 billion people globally are living with mental health issues. And closer home, in Kenya, 1 out of every 4 is suffering from depression. It is not anything that you would pick up. And even Matt Haig, I was reading something about him, and he says, I don't want to be classified as a mental health author, but really, even in his other books, he is trying to educate us. He's trying to tell us something nice. He's trying to tell us that mental health is here and it is real, and we need to take care of ourselves. So, Maryanne, maybe what were some of the quotes or passages that really stood out for you in this book?
Sure. This book had excellent quotes. There are very many to choose from, but allow me to read a passage.
Okay.
So, in this passage, which is in fact a precursor to Nora's realization about how important her life is, so I read, "It is easy to mourn the lives we aren't living. Easy to wish we had developed other talents, said yes to different offers. Easy to wish we had worked harder, loved better, handled our finances more astutely, been more popular. It takes no effort to miss the friends we didn't make, and the work we didn't do, the people we didn't marry, and the children we didn't have. It is not difficult to see yourself through the lens of other people, and to wish You are all the different kaleidoscopic versions of who you wanted to be. It is easy to regret and keep regretting until our time runs out. So the message there is that you can keep wallowing in regret, but we have we have a very short time on this earth. We don't know how long it is. So instead of wasting our time wallowing, live. Do it. I love it. Activate.
Yes.
and then so another quote I'd like to read is, this is shorter, so it's I'll be quick. If you aim to be something you're not, you will always fail. Aim to be you. Aim to look and act and think like you. Aim to be the truest version of you. Embrace that you-ness. Endorse it. Love it. Work hard at it. And don't give a second thought when people mock it or ridicule it. Most gossip is envy in disguise. I really love that, because sometimes we're always doubting ourselves, and we want to be like someone else. Yes, borrow some things that you like about that person, but you can never be Oprah. You can never, in fact, we don't want you to be. We want you to be the best version of you. And the last one, Nora says, so let's be kind to the people in our own existence. Let's occasionally look up from the spot in which we are, because wherever we happen to be standing, the sky above goes on forever. Wow. Those are the quotes I wanted to share.
They are quite something. Like, you don't have to be anybody else. Be you.
Yeah.
Be you.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think many times when we compare ourselves to others, we are being short to ourselves, because that's them. That's them. But do you? And you know what? It's easier to be you, because you're the only one who knows what that you is.
Yes.
Instead of having to copy someone else's, words.
And do it unafraid, do it scared, just do it.
Yes.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite it's mind-boggling. And as we go on with this book, Maryanne, what did you like most about the Midnight Library?
What I liked most about this book, I will tell you, I was listening to this book audio, so I'm not even reading it, when I was walking. So it's a nice time when you're walking out to see. It's that, so like when I was planning my day, I typically read in the morning. I think, what are my big issues of the day? When someone is thinking about committing suicide, it's that everything, they've given up on everything. But you have a bright morning, whatever day it's cold morning, it's raining. I'm here to experience the rain and I'm warm. So basically what I'm trying to say, it gave me hope. It was encouraging. It was a nice way to start the day, because it just said, whatever disappointments you may face during the day, whatever hardships you may face, this is not, it cannot be as great as this other person.
Yeah. And also, I'll say, when she came back the last time and she wanted to leave, Mrs. Elm told her, write your own story. And the first 3 words were, I am alive. I'm alive.
Yeah.
And that is something that we take for granted every day, that I wake up in the morning, I'm alive, I have hope. Like, if you do not have hope, you are done.
Yeah,
that is
right.
The only thing that we hang on as an individual, as a human being.
You're right. And I think, to your earlier point around mental health, it was also a book that, especially for our book club, is then you're able to talk about it. When I'm feeling depressed, because that's how it starts, in someone feeling depressed, we can talk about an issue that most of us do not like to talk about.
True.
Yeah.
I agree. And this is a book that invokes a lot of emotions.
Sure.
What did it make you feel?
Wow. As an executive coach, when people come to, when we're having our one-on-one, it's pretty much like this. And so the book helped me to empathize with people who, sometimes when we think someone is going through mental health, we almost want to dismiss them or not even be associated with them. But this book is able to evoke those feelings of empathy. Actually, and especially when you're seeing her in different lives, where sometimes she's really thriving and other times she is not. That is life. Life has its ebbs and flows. So the emotions that it gave me was, it also helped me to take stock of who I was, helped me to reflect, be present. And all those are, coaching skills, but coaching for the coach, but also coaching for the coachee. So it was really something that I was able to identify with. more importantly, is around the story of redemption. When she goes to see how her lives had been in other books, she's going to realize actually it's all about this is about your choices. All the consequences are all about me. So it doesn't really matter, you know. So that was important for me.
Is it safe to say that you are the choices you make? You are the sum total of your choices
You're
you
right.
make.
You're right.
It is safe to say that.
Yes.
Yeah, because we tend, as human beings, we tend to, blame everything around us, the environment, the work. But you are I can wake up and decide I am not going to wallow in this bad environment. I am going to thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, to add on to that, and that's a very good point you make, which is, how when we pray and we say, God, make me a more patient person. How will God make you a more patient person? By giving you trials and tribulations.
Yes.
So for you to learn from, to become a better, a more patient person. Yeah. There's no way you become patient unless you've gone through the trials and tribulations. So to this point, that's what this book is talking about, that when you see ourselves in other lives, we are some of all our choices, but actually as we make those prayers, because it's a prayer, whenever we're struggling, it's a prayer and ask that take me away from this, but you have the power to get yourself out of it.
Yes. And Maryanne, I get people who tell me, you have a lot of potential, and I think I have a lot of potential. And then I just go and sit. Like, what is wrong with me? When I read this book, it is all systems go. I do not want to, to wake up in a midnight library and I'm wondering why did I not, sit on those, why did I sit on those, what do you call them?
Talents,
gifts, yes,
whatever you want to call it. Yes, I agree.
It was really a wake-up call, and I hope anybody who has not read this book would just get themselves, or even listen to it.
Yeah,
it really is a very good book.
And so, even to add on to that, just to sum this up, is taking things for granted. She didn't see her swimming as anything important. How many people in this world can swim? She didn't see her ability to play the piano as an important one. How many people in this world can play the piano? Skills that, yes, by what you call traditional schemes, are not seen as important, but actually are very important.
Very important. To an extent, we're even going to the Olympics. And are there books that you would compare this book to? Have you read any book that will compare this book to?
Well, first I'll cheat and say one is a film. It's A Wonderful Life. But in terms of books, to answer your question directly, is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which is a classic, and Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And what is interesting and why they are similar is that the central character faces hardship and then decides that there's nothing more for me to do in this world. Maybe not committing suicide, but they just feel disheartened. And they're given a chance to see their life if it were to be done again. And then they realize there's hope, there's redemption, So those books are very similar to The Midnight Library.
We are inviting Maryanne again to take us through those books or even through that film.
Thank you.
What do you think the author's goal was when writing this book?
I would want to say think, but I've actually researched on it. And actually, you hit the nail on the head earlier. He's been writing about mental health, and this is... So one of it is what we call cathartic, writing about what he's gone through himself and wanting to use a message to talk to a larger audience, and the whole issue around mental health. He had actually, I think it was in 2015, attempted suicide. And I think his Midnight Library came to him and he realized, no, he needed to write a story of being able to rise above that torment and seeking help where it was necessary. And I also believe it was actually good timing because of the pandemic. People, as you said earlier, with the statistics around how many people were actually affected by depression. So his main theme was around helping readers to think about their own lives and offer some comfort that actually they're on right track, and that yes, we are going to be faced with some tribulations and struggles, but we also all have a capacity to be able to endure.
What is your biggest lesson in this book? What is it that you learned and you'd want to pass it on to generations or to anybody around you?
That's a very important question. When we read a book, it's all about what are the themes and what are the key lessons we learn. And for me, there were 4 of them. And that regrets only hold us back. We matter more than we realize. We are all full of infinite potential. You raised that earlier. And in fact, I could also put it as, gratitude. Appreciate the season you're in. Appreciate what you have. You said it earlier. Appreciate that you're even be able to be alive and be able to talk and all the things. In fact, it reminds me of that song we used to sing about. I've got a shoe, you got a shoe. All God's children got a shoe. So sometimes it's how many people don't even have a shoe?
Yeah.
How many people don't even have food to eat? Sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't go to a particular place, but you're able to eat a basic stuff.
Or even a leg to put on that shoe.
Exactly. So it's appreciating what we have. So this book had really strong lessons. Regrets only hold us back. Yes, take the lesson in, move forward. We matter more than we realize. What I was alluding to earlier about that she didn't see the impact she had on other people, even people she did not believe were in her circle of life. We are all full of infinite potential. We were talking about that earlier, about the swimming, the piano, but her music, being able to play in a band, learn a new language. For as long as we are on this earth, and we have the will, we're able to do much more. And of course, as I said earlier, being able to appreciate what we have and being able to do more with it.
Being able to do more with it. What has really gotten me there is gratitude. We take it for granted. Every day that you wake up is a new opportunity to be yourself, to do better. Gratitude is one of the... and Oprah always talks about gratitude. I actually got... from her the gratitude journal. Like, wake up every day, even when you're feeling as hopeless as nobody's business, wake up and write, what is it that I'm grateful for? And it came out really well here,
because even if you're as you're saying, oh, this job, I don't like it. Someone else is praying, Lord, can I have a job? Oh, these clothes, I can't, I don't like them. Someone is like, can I get some clothes to fit in? So whatever the issue is, and that's why, in fact, I'm sure God usually finds us very humorous, and sometimes in the sense of, then you pray and you get a job, and then you go back to the same cycle again.
I don't want this job.
So whatever you have, count your blessings.
Oh yeah, count your blessings.
Yeah, because you don't know what's on the other side, but you do know what you have now, here and now. Be present. Yeah.
Wow, that one is a very good one. Was the book satisfying to read?
So this it's a difficult question for someone who has studied literature, because I'm sure everyone has criteria by which they judge a book.
Yeah.
So for me, I'll always be like, what themes came out? What are the characters like? What was the writing style? Did I learn something? For me, because I'm a learner, that's important for me. So it was more than satisfactory, because a hard topic, but was able to break it down in a very easy read. The protagonist, Nora, was someone who was relatable. Someone you probably even know. Yeah. Even though she was based in London, there's someone who is in that scenario. It couldn't be yourself.
Yeah.
The writing style, easy to, even from an audio perspective, it was easy to listen to. You wanted to know more, and you could still follow the track. The opening, because, I don't know about you, but sometimes if the book doesn't grab you at the beginning, then the ability to proceed with it can be tough. But at the very beginning, she's already committing suicide. So this is supposed to happen in the end, but then you don't know where it's going to take you. And that's always a nice surprise to get into and eat into it. So it was very satisfactory.
I'll actually tell you, when I opened the book and I saw about the suicide, I was like, is it supposed to be here? What am I reading?
Yes.
And then I wanted to know what so now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So
really...
it hooked you, to grab your attention.
Yeah, because there's some books by page 2 you're wondering.
Yeah, how far are we going? This is gonna be a toll.
Yeah, this is gonna be a toll. But this one, page 1, you're already wondering, what? Suicide on day 1?
Yeah.
We have 200 more
Page,
pages to
exactly.
go.
Yeah.
So what next?
Yeah.
And now, if you met Matt Haig today,
what
question would you want to ask him, or what burning question would you want him to address?
I found this a difficult question because I felt that he had done a good job with just explaining it. In fact, I know, having read some reviews, people are upset about how she's not marrying Ash and I don't know what. And I was like, no, it couldn't have worked out that way. But knowing that he wrote this book when he was battling depression, how difficult, the question to him would be, how difficult was it for him to use a female voice to bring up this character? Because you would imagine that he would know as a man how a man would go through depression having gone through it. But now he had to think through it from a female voice. So that would be the question for him.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's being a literature person, that one I hadn't thought about. But look, coming to think of it, how did he do that?
Yes, I'm sure he had. I'll venture a guess. He has to do some research. He probably spoke by research, meaning on the topic. Research by talking to people, women who had gone through it. And of course, me being in the space of women empowerment, this is something that was interesting for me to just see. He's taken the time to analyze it, to know what the fears were. The quote I read earlier about marriage, about children, about relationships, about career, about help. All those things are very important for us as women.
Oh, okay. So now I want us to shift. And we have talked about this book for some time now. We are not going to talk beyond that because you need to read that book if you haven't read it. And Maryanne hosts a show that is called... I wanted you to say it the way you say it on the podcast. Gems and Nuggets podcast. And I wanted to flip the coin. She asks some very, very nice questions. And I really wanted to know, who is Maryanne in 3 words?
I will say this is an easier one for me to answer this particular question because I'm very introspective. But my 3 words are, I'm a learner, I'm resourceful, and I'm an activator.
Activator, yes. And I was telling her, like, she is the perfect definition of sending the ladder down.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate
I have been
that.
in the space of Activate, and it was a learning space. To date, I don't think I have ever attended any dinner that gave me so much impact like the Activate dinner, the last one that we
The
had.
Networking Collective. Yes, that's one of our products. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what are your top 3 greatest achievements?
One, I would say, was being a caregiver to my 3 siblings. I'm a firstborn. So spending my time when I was in university to, work with them. So I feel that's a great achievement because it was something that was that I was trying to bake, but hadn't, been able to remove, to forget bake. I don't even found the ingredients for, so I kept giving excuses for it. So it's one of the things I'm really proud of because of the impact it has had on the many women that, like you've just shared just now.
I am a product.
And I'm pleased that you're saying it for yourself, And the third would be being an executive coach because many times women had come up to me and told me, be my coach. But at some point I was like, I don't want, how they talk about the elephant. I don't know if you heard of that poetry where you're searching and the people you're guiding are no better. You're blind and you're leading the others. So when I certified, it gave me the tools to be able to work with these women, and a space that I've been very passionate about for a long, long time. So I felt that I had taken the time to read, research, and because I'm a learner, I'm still sharpening my soul every day about being a good coach for my clients.
I'll actually tell you something that I met Maryanne at an event, and I sat when I saw it was her. I sat on the front row because I wanted to know who is this person. She actually taught me that when you're going to an event, research on the brand colors and And I kept wondering. After that, I kept wondering, why don't you have a podcast? So 2 years later, I actually saw something and I was like, finally, and you're doing very well.
Thank you very much.
I am a partaker of that, so I know it. Excellent.
And now here you are with your own podcast. And now I'm on the hot seat. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Now, what impact has reading had on your life's aspirations and goals? Because I know you are a reader.
Yes. And now this is a tough one to ask for someone who's a bibliophile. Impact that reading has had on me. I must first acknowledge that my parents were the ones who got me reading. My father set the example and my mother bought the books. And I have been a voracious reader. But the thing, in fact, to a point where it needed to be tempered. But the impact it has had on me is, it has been very impactful for me because, one, I read, like, for example, Sidney Sheldon's Rage of Angels. And in that book, the lady was a lawyer. And I liked the way she navigated. And guess what? Some of those skills, I'm not a lawyer, but, the Olivia Pope-ness of her are things that I have now applied in my life today. So, for example, it has impacted the career choices I've had. It has opened my mind to people. People come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So it has helped me think about my stakeholders. Who are they? How do I react to them? Have I done my research, to your point? So books have been very impactful. And then also feelings. How do people deal with certain issues? And it helps you to reflect and take time to think about, if I was in that situation, how would I have dealt with it? And that also gives you the confidence to meet up with people and be able to exchange ideas. Yeah. So reading has just been, and then traveling. You may not have to be in a country. I remember reading, a book on Kabul. Where is Kabul? What's the history of Kabul?
By Khalid Hussein?
No. And that's a person, that's Elif Shafak, but Khalid Hussein is the kite runner. So in a funny way, you get to know about, like, Afghanistan and the wars and what's impacting that. Then you read another book. So reading has just been phenomenal for me. Meeting up with people who read, exchanging books, opening up my mind, just a wonderful, wonderful time. And also, it's a stress reliever. When you just go and take your book and you're away from the world and you dip yourself into someone else's life, it's just a lovely way to be in the world.
It is. And I like your point of traveling the world, because I picked the coffee shop in Kabul by
Elif Shafak.
Was it?
It's also Elif Shafak.
Yes. And I was wondering, I've never even heard of Kabul. Yeah. But then I later went and researched and found out, okay. Now, something that I really like from your podcast, and I'm always wanting to listen, if you could have an intimate conversation with 3 people, who would you pick and why?
Because I've had time to think about this and because of my podcast, without a doubt, the first person would be my late father. He died when I was 13. And he was a naval captain. He had been a farmer. And being a firstborn, how they say fathers and their and daughters, we had a really good bond. So it would be, first of all, my father was also a humorous guy. So I know it would be we would be laughing about, so how's he growing up, and what are your regrets? And what are and then I think he'd also be very proud of who I am, and I'd want for him to be proud of who I am, choosing my own path. And then I'd also tease him about some of the things that because now growing up, when you look at your parent, they are almost like God. Yeah. But now when you look back, there's some things that you would want to also tell him. Now it's my turn to tell you a few things. Well, we are that, this, that, and the other. Yeah. But also to thank him for who I've gotten to be, and so that's the first person. The second person is our very own Wangari Maathai. Growing up, the narrative that I saw on TV made me want to disassociate myself from her. Yeah. But when I then got older and got to read her book, Unbowed, such an apt memoir, wonderful, kept the tenacity, the grit, having been divorced at an earlier age, at a time in African society where divorce, the D word, was not there. And not that I'm advocating for divorce, I want to be very clear about that. But what it must have been for her to come to that decision with her children. If you remember the images we saw about Wangari, unkempt hair and running and hugging trees. What are these trees about? Yeah. But now knowing how climate change is such an important thing, and it needed for another country to, or a prize, Nobel Prize laureate to get her there. The sacrifices she must have made There's so many things I just want to talk to her about and just tell her, first of all, forgive me for having that image of you, but more importantly, just respect and honor her. And interestingly, she's a name that comes up a lot in my podcast. So it's goes to show you how many people really look up to Wangari Maathai. And then the last person, I have to be honest and authentic to myself, is Winnie Mandela. Winnie Mandela was one of those controversial, but also not misunderstood women of our century. Very beautiful woman. And Nomzomo, as her middle name, which is difficult because she came at a difficult time. She just went through a lot, and let us agree that South Africa would not be what it is today had it not been for Winnie living up to that, living up to the cause, but also that she was also not she had some faults. And she acknowledged some of them, and she didn't acknowledge some of them. So I would like to get her thoughts on, really, let's look back and just let's talk about this now that we don't have to be judged. What do you say? And just to hear about that. And she raised two beautiful daughters alone for most of her time, being a young divorced woman. So there's a lot that I think that branch would really, I think it would be a branch going into lunch, going into dinner, and and to midnight, as it were.
Last month our book discussion was Unbowered.
Wow.
And I discussed it with a younger lady who I wanted to hear what the thoughts are, because even what I remember about Wangari was her unkempt hair and running all over. And now what's one thing that you will do if you had no limitations?
Now, having read The Midnight Library, I do not want to live in regrets. I know what this question is an interesting one because it says, what are my limitations? So I have to ask myself, what are my limitations? And why am I not living what I want to live? So this one I want to say is a reflective one that I'm thinking about. What are my limitations? Am I living the life I want to live? So it's more a reflective question that I'd want to just keep asking myself and living to my capabilities and not wanting to live a life with limits.
Wow, I like that.
Thank you.
This is the last question before we wind up. What legacy would you like to leave, Maryanne? So, Maryanne, I always hear you asking people, what 3 books would you recommend to anyone who is listening to this podcast? So today, flip it. What 3 books would you recommend to anyone who is watching this video?
So that's a tough question for me because I read a lot. But the way I look at it is I have a nuanced approach to recommending books to people. And earlier on, we were talking about who you're targeting. And if I remember correctly, you said young men and women who you're trying to encourage to read, that's why it's beyond the covers. So I really love that. And so if I think about your audience, the first book that comes to mind is The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. Shonda Rhimes, many people know from How to Get Away with Murder and Scandal, or, the one that has Olivia Pope. She found herself always saying no because of her busy schedule. I'm so busy, I can't do this. And then she realized that she needed to challenge herself to be open to new opportunities. And I think that's, for us, just a matter of how we prioritize things and being more open to meeting up with different people and challenging ourselves to new worldviews. So that's one. The other book I have is one of my personal favorites. So this one has nothing to do with nuance. It's called Little Women by Louisa M. Alcott. It's actually a classic, which I was fortunate enough to read in Senate 4 as a set book, and again in Form 1. And I think many versions of this has been done in a film. And it's about 4 sisters who are just going through life, and there were such different personalities, and how they started being childhood friends, and then, going through teenage years and not being the best of friends, and people, mixing the first one, liking the third one better, which is life, and then going into adulthood and the choices they make, which is also very interesting because of the Midnight Library that we earlier discussed. But then it's about what choices we have with the tribulations we do have. And, the issue about being sisters. And it's an important book that was written 150 years ago and is still very relevant today. And the third book I would recommend is a book that was also another set book in university. I think it's only about 50 pages, and it's called So Long a Letter by Maryanne Mwaura. And it's Senegalese, so it's an African book. And it's about two friends going through life. And one friend ends up going to the States, and they're now exchanging letters about the experiences from when they were about life. You know, going through divorce, and you can imagine marriage, polygamy, all the tough issues African women face. But in such a short letter of a book, so heavy. And this is not a book I even recommend. It's a book I bought and even given to people, because people are like, especially for those who say, I can't read, this is one book that you feel like you've succeeded in reading, because it's only 50 pages, but the themes are weighty, and you can actually have a very deep and fulfilling book club discussion.
Wow. I will look for it. 50 pages.
50 pages,
you can read
easy.
it in like 1 hour.
You can sit down and finish it and be done.
Wow.
And be and also be able to say, yes, I've read a book.
Yes,
this
I've read a
month.
book. Yeah,
You
for
know?
people who don't like to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Maryanne, what legacy would you want to be remembered for?
Legacy is one of those tough questions that anyone has to keep thinking, and I think it changes as our seasons of life changes. But the one thing that in my current state that I want to be remembered for is how I impacted women. Women to live their authentic lives, women to look at their struggles but still have the energy to overcome those issues. And as I'm an activator, what are those ideas, dreams you want to fulfill, but you're procrastinating about? Something that I have myself gone through. How you can reinvent yourself. That for as long as you are breathing on this earth, you have the opportunity to be whoever you want to be. And for me, my legacy is based on, and I'll say this, on a biblical story, the parable of talents. That all of us have X number of talents, but that we must die empty and more. It would be so sad for us. You know, you're talking about earlier about potential. Why? Be the best you can be, yes, but be able to go back to your maker and say, you know what? Thank you. You gave me this, and I'm able to return to you that. And if this is the message I can be able to use, using my voice to impact women. And they also say when you impact one woman, you impact a society.
Ripple effect.
The ripple effect. You know, we're repeating all the words into my legacy. Then I would have lived the life. And so sometimes someone was asking me, even my own friends asking, Maryanne, where do you get the energy from? I know it's God who gives me the energy. And also, when you're living the life that you're meant to live, energy is not a problem, if you know what I mean. Because then you can wake up earlier, you can sleep later, but also taking care of your health to do it. So I'm passing on these messages, and that's why I'll come up to your forum, because it's something that I'm able to pass on to you, yes, but you're impacting X number of people. So the more we impact, then the ripple effect, and it grows and grows. That for me is my legacy.
Wow. I'm wow. I have no words.
Thank you so much
Mwaura,
for
thank you.
making time, giving me this platform to share. And I can only wish you all the best with Beyond the Covers. I know it's something that speaks to me about books, and even from the cover of your emblem, of your logo, it will just grow. And you don't know the impact. Right now, you don't know the impact. But when we are in our own midlife libraries, we will then get to see the impact that we have had on the many people in our lives.
Thank you very much, Maryanne. Thank you, especially for honoring me and coming on the show.